All right, let's dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you're looking to really boost your financial knowledge, this book has some key lessons, and we're here to unpack those for you. We're going way deeper than just a basic summary, though. Get ready for some surprising stuff. Like, did you know Kiyosaki says your house isn't actually an asset?
Yeah, Rich Dad, Poor Dad definitely shakes things up, goes against the green a bit.
Yep.
That's probably why it sparks so much discussion about money over the years.
Absolutely, and to really get into it,
Yeah.
let's start with the foundation of the book. The two dads. Kiyosaki had his biological father, the poor dad, and then his best friend's dad, the rich dad. Those two had totally opposite views on money, and it really shaped Kiyosaki's whole perspective.
It all comes down to their mindsets, how they approached money. The poor dad would often say that classic line, I can't afford it. But the rich dad turned that around, always asking instead, how can I afford it?
It's subtle, but
Yeah.
yeah, it totally changes how you look at things.
Yeah, it does. It's like reframing a roadblock into a challenge. Instead of just shutting down, you have to think outside the box and explore new possibilities.
Exactly, you're forced to be more creative.
For sure. And it can apply to so many areas of life, not just money. Like, let's say you want to invest in something, but you think, I can't afford it. Well, that statement just shuts the door right there. But if you ask, how can I afford it? Suddenly, all these possibilities open up.
You might discover new solutions you hadn't even considered before.
Right. And that leads perfectly into one of Kiyosaki's biggest ideas. How the rich, the poor, and the middle class all have different cash flow patterns.
He uses some simple diagrams to show this, which we'll describe for you since this is audio. But imagine like a flow chart, money coming in and going out. So for someone struggling financially, their income comes in and goes right back out to bills and expenses. There's no room for assets to generate more income.
It's a cycle, yeah. Earning and spending with nothing left over to really grow your wealth. That's the rat race he talks about, which traps a lot of people, even those earning a decent income.
They might have a few assets, but also a bunch of liabilities like a mortgage or car loans.
Exactly. So even if they make more money, their expenses go up too, keeping them stuck.
It's like running on that treadmill at the gym. You're putting in the effort, but not getting anywhere.
Perfect analogy. Now, with the rich, their cash flow pattern is different. They build up their asset column. So a chunk of their income consistently goes into things that generate even more income. It snowballs.
More income, more assets, and it just keeps growing.
Exactly. And this is where Kiyosaki's really controversial point about houses comes in. He says a house is a liability, not an asset, which goes against what a lot of people think.
Yeah, that one definitely raised my eyebrows the first time I read it. So how does he explain that?
It's all about how he defines assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket, while a liability takes money out. Now think about your house. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, all that. It's all pulling money out of your pocket each month.
So even though a house can be valuable in other ways, it doesn't fit his definition of an asset.
Right. It's not generating income, it's costing you money. Plus, he points out that houses don't always go up in value, and having so much money tied up in one means you might miss other investment opportunities.
It makes you think about housing differently, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's not saying never buy a house, but to think about it strategically, how it fits in your overall financial plan.
So if the rat race is all about liabilities, how do we escape it? How do we build that all-important asset column?
That's where minding your own business comes in.
Now, I don't think he means literally starting a business, right?
Not necessarily. It's more about shifting your focus to building a portfolio of income-generating assets.
Gotcha. So things like real estate, but he also mentions businesses, stocks, even intellectual property. The goal is to have these assets working for you, bringing in income even when you're not actively working.
Right. And to do that well, you need financial literacy, understanding how to manage your money, make good investments.
It's like learning the rules of the game so you can play it strategically.
Exactly. He even gets into corporations and how the wealthy use them to their advantage, especially with taxes.
That's a topic for another day, I think. But the main point is knowledge is power, especially with finances.
Couldn't agree more.
Now, Kiyosaki's pretty clear that building wealth his way involves risk. In fact, he seems to almost embrace the idea of failure.
He does. He actually sees failure as a crucial part of learning. He even says winners are inspired by failure, while losers are defeated by it.
Strong words. And he backs it up with some powerful stories in the book.
Like the one about the Alamo, where he uses it as an example of courage and taking risks even when the odds are against you.
And there's that story about Richard's real estate investment that looked like a disaster at first.
Oh, yeah. Richard was ready to give up because the market tanked, but Kiyosaki told him to stick with it. He believed in the long-term potential.
And it paid off in the end, right?
It did. The market bounced back and Richard made a profit.
It shows the importance of patience and not getting spooked by short-term ups and downs.
For sure, having the courage to ride out the storm and trusting your strategy. Speaking of strategy, at the end of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kiyosaki gives 10 steps to awaken your financial genius. These are things readers can actually do to start applying what they learned in the book.
All right, let's hear about those 10 steps. What's the first one?
The first step is finding a reason greater than reality, what he calls the power of spirit.
Okay, so what does he mean by that?
It's about having a really strong why, a motivation that drives your desire for financial freedom. It's not just about wanting to be rich for the sake of it, but having a deeper purpose behind it.
So it could be wanting to provide for your family, leave legacy, or have the freedom to pursue your passions.
Exactly. It's connecting your financial goals to something bigger than yourself, something that keeps you going when things get tough.
Makes sense that motivation can be powerful. All right, what's step 2?
Step 2 is choose your thoughts.
Okay, so we're talking about mindset here.
Exactly. Kiyosaki emphasizes taking control of your thoughts, not letting fear and doubt hold you back.
He also talks about choosing your friends carefully.
He says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people.
Their mindset and habits will rub off on you, good or bad.
That's the idea.
All right, what's next?
Step 3 is choose your heroes carefully.
So this is similar to choosing your friends, but on a larger scale.
Right. It's about finding people you admire, people who inspire you to achieve great things.
He talks about how he had baseball heroes growing up who motivated him.
And he suggests finding similar figures in the world of finance, people whose stories resonate with you.
Makes sense. Having those role models can be really powerful. So what's step 4?
Step 4 is master a formula and then learn a new one.
Interesting. What does that mean?
It's about becoming an expert in one specific area of investing, really learning it inside and out. And then once you've mastered that, expanding your knowledge base, learning a new strategy.
He's all about continuous learning, always growing your financial knowledge.
Definitely. Always be learning.
All right, on to step 5.
Step 5 is a classic one. Pay yourself first.
I've heard that before, but it's always good to be reminded.
It's a fundamental principle. It means prioritizing saving and investing even before you pay your bills. Kiyosaki points out that most people do it the other way around, paying themselves last. And that's a big reason why they struggle to get ahead financially.
So we need to flip the script, make sure a portion of our income is always going towards our assets first.
Exactly. It's a shift in mindset and behavior that can make a huge difference in the long run.
Got it. So what's step 6?
Step 6 is pay your brokers well.
Okay, I'm curious about this one.
It's about recognizing the value of good advice and guidance. You want to find experts who can help you achieve your financial goals.
So like financial advisors, brokers, that sort of thing.
Yes, but Kiyosaki specifically recommends finding ones who are also investors themselves.
So they have skin in the game, they understand the market firsthand.
Exactly. You're not just looking for someone selling you a product. You want a partner invested in your success.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, what's step 7?
Step 7 is be an Indian giver.
Now that one sounds a little controversial. Can you explain what he means by that?
Oh, he's not advocating for anything unethical. It's more about being resourceful and creative, finding win-win situations. He talks about negotiating deals where he got assets for much less than their market value.
So it's about having a sharp mind for business, seeing opportunities others might miss.
Exactly. He encourages being bold and thinking differently about how you acquire assets.
Interesting. Okay, step 8?
Step 8 is assets, buy luxuries.
Okay, that sounds intriguing. What's the idea there?
It's about the importance of delayed gratification. Kiyosaki observes that the poor and middle class often buy luxuries first, while the rich buy them last. He says you should focus on building up your assets first, having them work for you, and then once those assets are generating enough income, then you can enjoy the luxuries.
Makes sense. It's about making your money work for you, not the other way around.
Right. Build a solid foundation first, then enjoy the rewards.
All right, step 9.
Step 9 is the need for heroes.
Interesting. What does he mean by that?
He believes strongly in the power of role models. Find people you admire in the world of investing, people who inspire you and show you what's possible.
He talks about his childhood baseball heroes again.
Yeah, he suggests finding similar figures in finance, people whose stories motivate you.
Surrounding yourself with positive influences. I like it. Okay, last step. Step 10.
Step 10 is teach, and you shall receive.
No, that's a powerful one. What's he getting at there?
It's about giving back, sharing your knowledge, and helping others. Kiyosaki believes that teaching is one of the best ways to learn yourself, and that generosity attracts abundance.
So it's like creating a ripple effect, helping others achieve financial success, which in turn strengthens your own understanding and expertise.
Exactly. The idea is that by sharing your knowledge and resources, you actually increase your own capacity for wealth.
I love that concept. It's beautiful. Wow, we've covered so much ground already. From those mindset shifts to cash flow patterns, the power of corporations, and the importance of financial literacy. We even went through all 10 of his steps for awakening your financial genius.
Hmm.
But there's one thing that's been on my mind.
What's that?
Kiyosaki talks a lot about corporations and how the wealthy use them to get tax advantages. He even suggests that the rich don't really pay taxes. How does that work?
That's a great question, and it's definitely one of the more controversial parts of his philosophy. We should definitely dive into that a little deeper. So it's not that the rich are breaking the law, it's more about working within the system.
Right, using it to their advantage.
Exactly. Kiyosaki really dives into the history of taxes. He explains that in the beginning, taxes were mostly on the wealthy. It was sold to everyone else as a way to redistribute the wealth, make things fairer.
Like Robin Hood, take from the rich and give to the poor.
Yeah, that's the idea. But as governments needed more money, the income level for being taxed increased lower and lower, eventually hitting the middle class, the very people who had supported the idea in the first place.
Ironic, isn't it? So how did the wealthy react to these higher taxes?
Kiyosaki says they found ways to use the system to their benefit, especially through corporations.
Ah, I see where this is going. He often talks about how a corporation isn't really a thing, it's more of a legal concept.
Right, just a piece of paper, essentially. And because of this legal structure, corporations have certain tax advantages that individuals don't.
So it's not about evading taxes, it's about using the tax code strategically.
Exactly, playing the game smartly.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Kiyosaki argues that the wealthy understand this game, while the poor and middle class often don't.
And that puts them at a disadvantage.
Right. He even points out that when you're an employee, a big chunk of your income goes straight to taxes before you even see it. So it's like you're working for the government first.
That's a pretty eye-opening way to look at it. So whether you agree with him completely or not, he's making us think about financial literacy and how money really works in our society.
Absolutely. Understanding these systems is crucial. It gives you more control.
Okay, so we've covered a lot with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We've talked about the different mindsets of the rich and poor, the importance of building up your assets, and that whole idea of financial literacy. We even went through all 10 steps he outlines for becoming financially successful. Is there anything else you'd like to highlight before we wrap things up?
I think one of the most powerful messages in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that financial freedom is a choice. It's not determined by your current situation.
He really stresses that you have the power to change your financial future.
Yeah, he doesn't want people to feel trapped, whether by their job or by debt or anything else. He wants you to take control of your finances and not rely on anyone else for security.
It's a challenge to that traditional path of going to school, getting a job, and working for money.
Right, he's proposing an alternative, building assets and creating your own income streams. And he lays out those 10 steps as a roadmap to get started.
It's not about getting rich quick. It's about changing your mindset and developing good habits for the long term.
Exactly. It's about empowering yourself to create the life you want.
I think that's a great way to sum it up.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a book that can really spark a lot of discussion and self-reflection.
For sure. Whether you agree with everything Kiyosaki says or not, he makes you question your assumptions about money and how the world works.
And hopefully it inspires our listener to take charge of their finances and start their own journey towards financial freedom.
That's a great point. And remember, financial education is a lifelong process. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep working towards your goals.
I couldn't agree more.
We'll be here to support you every step of the way. Okay, so we've talked about how Kiyosaki emphasizes financial literacy and understanding these systems, like taxes. But I have to admit, when he says that the rich use corporations to avoid paying taxes, it rubs me the wrong way. It feels kind of, I don't know, elitist.
I get that. It's a common reaction to that part of the book. But remember, Kiyosaki is very clear that he's not talking about tax evasion, which is illegal. He's talking about using the tax code strategically, which is perfectly legal.
Okay, so it's less about getting away with something and more about being smart, knowing how to play the game.
Exactly. Think of it like this. If there are deductions or credits you can legally use, why wouldn't you? That's his whole point.
So where do corporations come into this? I'm still a little unclear on that part.
Well, corporations are taxed differently than individuals. They have certain deductions and loopholes that individuals don't. And Kiyosaki's argument is that the wealthy are more likely to understand and use these benefits.
He also seems to be saying that the system is designed to benefit the wealthy in this way.
He does touch on that, suggesting that the tax code often favors those who already have money and resources.
That's a bold statement. I'm sure it's controversial.
Definitely. But regardless of whether you agree with him or not, the takeaway is that knowledge is power, especially with finances. Understanding how taxes work for both individuals and corporations can help you make smarter decisions for yourself.
So it's less about him pushing a specific political agenda and more about empowering individuals to take control.
Right. It's like he's saying, don't be a victim of the system, learn how it works, and use that knowledge to your advantage.
I like that. I think we can all agree that being financially savvy is important no matter how much money you make.
Absolutely. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad, even if you don't agree with everything, gets people talking about these important issues.
It does. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what would you say is the most important thing our listeners should take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that your financial future is ultimately up to you. You have the power to change your situation. You don't have to stay stuck in that rat race.
It's about shifting your mindset, learning about finances, and creating a life where you control your money, not the other way around.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership and building the future you want.
Well said. And thank you so much for walking us through Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I feel like I have a much better grasp on Kiyosaki's ideas now.
It's been a pleasure. Always happy to discuss this stuff.
And to our listener, we hope this exploration of Rich Dad, Poor Dad has sparked your own interest in personal finance. It's a lifelong journey, so keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep striving for your goals. And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way.